Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media and bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that now. Also, post about it, rate, and review. You will not believe how this helps get the podcast into more leaders' hands just like you. We are continuing our Joy series, Kevin.
Joy series.
Joy. So much joy. Joy. Episode 50.
We're about to enter the joy zone,
Yeah,
VJ.
it is the joy zone. Ooh,
we're not going to coast into it.
Yeah, if you want to,
we're going to fly into
see more about the Joy series, visit us at, never mind, behope.church. But check this out. Episode 57.
57.
You have titled this, now get this, folks, The Joy Thief.
The Joy Thief.
Joy Thief. Talk about it, Kevin. Who is, what is, why is there a joy thief?
So, a second installment of this series on joy in leadership, leading towards joy, whatever you want to call this. We just called it joy because we didn't have time for titles. We didn't spend any effort on that. And in the first installment, we talked about, hey, the reason why you should lead is joy. Shouldn't be a false prophet of cash flow, anything that your 7-year-old self would want to hit you upside the head because of why you're doing it. It should be joy. That's what leaders do.
Oops, upside your head. I said oops, upside your head.
Stop it. So that was the first installment. And we said also that, hey, this is paralleling a lot of the content and what we're doing on the series on the weekends at Be Hope Church. So if you were with us this past weekend and you're listening to these podcasts up to date, the title of the message was Killjoy. It was this idea that we think like, oh, our circumstances, we think the criticism, we think our working conditions, all these other things are the things that are killing our joy. And we pinpoint it, and I'm going to sum up the whole message here, but that you are the one who is killing your joy. No one else can take what only God can give. And so if your joy is being killed, it is by you. I'm not going to unpack all of that here, but I want to look at that from a leadership perspective. And so to deconstruct a couple things, the thought that we run into in leadership is the reason why I don't have joy in my work is because of a bad boss, poor coworkers, bad working conditions, not enough appreciation, not enough pay, not enough forward progress. And I want to be clear that those things matter. Those things are important. I don't have time to fully comment on all those and how they matter and how they contribute to your work, but I do want to make this distinction that they can increase or decrease your enjoyment of your work, but they do not install or take away the joy in your leadership and the joy in your work. They can make it feel a little better or make it feel a little worse. But let me comment on it through this context. There is no job that will give you joy. That even if you have the perfect environment, boss, work, job description, all these other things, that perfect environment for your work will not automatically give you joy.
That's good.
And there are people who have worse jobs, worse conditions, worse leadership contexts than you do that have more joy than you do as well. And I believe this. I believe that the joy thief comes from you, that you are the only one who is taking away your joy. And in the context of leadership, I think it comes down to one thing in particular, okay? That there is a thing that contributes to our loss of joy more than anything else. And there is, let me reference it with a study. So there's a study done not that long ago. I forget what animal this study was done on. I don't want to contribute which animal it was because I don't know, people get funny about that, and I understand that entirely, just to be clear. But they were doing this. They had an animal that was on a surface that would receive a very, very mild electrical shock. Again, we are not debating the merits of this study and if this study should be done. I'm just showing you the results of the study. We did not conduct this experiment.
I did not. I was nothing was harmed in the taping of this podcast.
Nothing was harmed in the taping of this podcast. So one animal was on a surface and would receive a mild electrical shock. And when that mild electrical shock came in, they would walk over. They were trained to walk over. They would press on a certain button and the shock would go away. And so this happened over and over again. As soon as the shock came in, the animal would run over to the button, press the button, and the shock would go away. The other group will receive a mild electrical shock, and it didn't matter what they did. The shock would not go away until at a preset time, the shock would go away. So what they were studying was, how does control over the environment, how does a feeling of helplessness contribute to someone's emotional state in what they are doing? And what they found is that the group that received the mild electrical shock and that could walk over and press the button, it made no impact. The electrical shock, the adverse working conditions, the negative stimulus and pain didn't change their emotional state whatsoever. And the other group, which actually received the same amount of shock, okay? So they received the mild electrical shock for the same amount of time. The other group became depressed quickly. So look at that. They both received the same amount of pain. They both received the same amount of difficulty, but the group that believed that they had control over the time, it did not affect their emotional outlook. It did not affect their feelings throughout their work. But the group that was led to believe that they had no control and whatever they did didn't matter became depressed over time. And I believe one of the greatest things impacting your joy is a feeling of helplessness. Not helplessness, but is a feeling of helplessness. This sense of I can't shape my future. I can't shape my environment. I can't shape where my company's going or what my boss is doing. I am helpless in the work that I do. And here's the point that I want to drill in today. You might be contributing to your feeling of helplessness. Ooh. You might be. You are probably contributing to your feeling of helplessness. You are really definitely, I would bet money on it, and I'm a pastor, contributing to your feeling
for that one.
of helplessness. Okay, we made it there.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
There was a study from the Arbery Institute in a fantastic book titled Leadership and Self-Deception. This is one of the top books that I recommend to other people because it was a game changer for me starting out in leadership. And they set apart this kind of different tier system to show this is how we get to a feeling of helplessness. And the first one is this: we act contrary to what we feel we should do. We should go to our coworker with a problem, but we don't. We should have a higher quality of whatever we turned in or whatever we delivered, but we don't really feel like it would matter, and so we don't. We act contrary to what we feel we should do. When we do this, the second thing that happens is we begin to see the world in a way that justifies our actions. When we act contrary to what we feel we should do, we then create a narrative around it of going, well, if I would have gone to my coworker with the problem, they wouldn't have responded well anyway. If I would have spent more effort on the project or whatever it was, no one would have noticed the increase in quality. We act contrary to what we feel we should do, and then we begin to see the world in a way that justifies our actions. And those two things affects our worldview, affects our perspective on our work and our bosses and our coworkers. This then also creates behaviors that become character traits. All of a sudden, laziness is not a thing that we did. Laziness becomes who we are. Poor quality is not a simple action. Poor quality is associated with our character. Procrastination is not a one-time event. It's attached to who we are. And this also provokes others to do the same. This is so important. You may feel like your coworker never goes to the source, never goes to someone directly if there's a problem, that they're passive aggressive about it. And so you don't go to someone else in the problem. And the reality is that it may not be them who created it. You may be the one who started it. And when you start it, all of a sudden you provoke that action in others. What we end up doing is we create self-fulfilling justifications of our negative behavior. When we act in a negative way, we provoke others to act in a negative way. And all of this has to do with a feeling of helplessness. When I feel like what I do doesn't matter, doesn't shape something, doesn't contribute positively, we act contrary to how we feel we should do. We begin to see the world in a way that justifies our actions. And in doing this, it affects our worldview. These behaviors become character traits, and we provoke others to do the same. This could explain the polarity in our political system. And the Democrats go, well, we have to do this because the Republicans do this. And then the Republicans go, we have to respond this way because the Democrats do this. And I don't know who fired the first shot, but we just keep going back and forth.
True.
And what is created over this time is to go, we have to act in such negative and harsh and grasping for as much power as we possibly can ways. And I don't know who originally had that viewpoint. My guess is that both groups just kept upping the ante, and we kept provoking further actions in each other. And at the end of the day, this is my belief, is that there's no joy in that. There's no joy for any of it. And it's because we have this feeling of helplessness, and we probably are, we absolutely, definitely are contributing to our own feelings of helplessness. There's a scenario, we do what we shouldn't do, we created a narrative around why we did it, and then we're affected in our perspective. This attaches to our behaviors, and we provoke others to do the same. So that's a lot. Like that's a big idea. Let me just kind of boil it down for just a second. The list of what causes joy to be lost in our work and leadership is immense. Like, it's huge. I got a bad boss. I have no close friends at work. I have a poor environment. I have no sunlight. I have no clear goal. I have no connection to the purpose of my work, on and on and on. But I believe one of the clearest culprits to a loss of joy in our leadership is a feeling of helplessness, which is a feeling that we strengthen and intensify with our own actions. And so, if that's you, we want to talk about how you turn that around. We want to help you identify with it. And when I first read this book, Leadership and Self-Deception, I thought I was reading it for the benefit of other people who really needed that help.
Yeah.
And I read it and I was like, we act contrary to what we feel we should do. Oh, shoot, I do that. I begin to see the world in a way that justifies my actions.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Yep.
And now these are my behaviors and others are acting this way. And I went, it's me.
Yep.
Like, it's me.
Yeah.
And this feeling was not only having bad effects on the false prophets that I don't care about, it was ruining me of the joy in the work that was rightfully mine. And you might be doing that as well. Where you want to start, Veej? Where you want to start?
My friends are saying these things, so I'm gonna say these things.
Absolutely.
And believe it, and so it's right, and it's good. So is it John Krasinski? Is that the guy from The Office?
Yeah.
So bringing it back to your point about the news stations do exactly what our political, right? Pick one. They're doing the same thing, trying to up each other up. It's no longer about actually delivering the news.
No.
It's about what can I say that's going to get me better ratings than the other people instead of actually delivering. What he did, Johnny Boy did, was
some good news?
Some good news to actually deliver some good news, which is what we want our news stations to do at least half the time.
Please.
Right. Like half the time, can you tell us something that's worthwhile? that actually makes a difference in someone's life, that's meaningful and purposeful and you believe in, instead of this other stuff. So that's, to your point, exactly is a great analogy to that.
That's good.
The other part I got from your, it's so well laid out, but the way it's written is your joy is your job.
Yeah.
Talk
Absolutely.
more about that. Like that is your job, your joy, not how you how you're dealing with this circumstance, not what you're working on this project, not how you're leading this group to be better than they were the day before. Your joy, it's your job.
So let's put it in faith terms for a second. We believe this. We believe that God created you out of joy for joy.
Yes.
Out of his joy and for your joy. And scripture is oh so clear. And if you don't believe this, you got it wrong. Like if you're a Christian and you're hearing this, you haven't read the Bible, because it says that God is doing all these things for your joy. We remain, abide in him so that we will experience joy. That's what's there. And no one can take what only God can give.
Yes.
But you can give it up.
Yes.
Like, that's just the reality.
Yep.
No boss, no coworker, no dysfunctional environment, no harsh working conditions. They may change the enjoyment of your work, but they don't change the joy that you have deep within you. And so if you don't have joy, it's on you. Like I think that's the hardest thing for us to stomach is to go, it is so much easier for me to blame someone else for why I feel how I do. Because then not only do I not have to confess it or take ownership, I don't have to do anything about it.
That's right.
Because if it's in your hands, there's nothing I can do.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden we turn the tables and we go, no, your joy is your job, only your job, no one else's job. And if you don't have joy, it's on you.
That's exactly
right. You go, now I've got to act.
Yep.
Now I've got to do something.
Yeah, you can't sit still after that realization. Let's just get real. I've never had more joy in my life than present time. So YouTube, mark this down. Today I am very joyful. Before, not joyful. And the reason is because of that, what you just realized.
Like, you mean like a season as a whole, or like this exact moment?
In my life now.
Yeah, but like right now, or just generally?
It was just like 3 seconds ago, but now I'm even more. So it's now. But
when have I had the most joy?
But seriously.
Oh, can I be silly for a second and let you be seriously? Like, when have I had the most joy? Now. But now it's now.
Yeah.
The most joy ever. All right, now. Okay, now, but seriously, seriously.
Can we cut this out? No, but seriously, here's the thing. Like, it's like all the years hey, what'd you say? We want to lead people towards hope, not despair?
Yes.
All previous life to the point is despair. Yeah. And it was not someone else. No, it wasn't my upbringing that things happened. It wasn't all these situations in my life that things happened. A lot of choices I made that things happen. Choices out of my control, like the experiment that things happen, right? It was still my choice to live in despair. It wasn't until I realized my joy was my job that it actually made sense to me, and then I could obtain joy through God.
And you're working harder and pulled in more directions and have more responsibility than ever before.
And
more joy.
And more joy. Yeah. And more joy. I am busier now in my life at 44 than I have ever been. It's not even up for discussion. It's not even clear. My wife just told me the other day, hey, that computer's open a lot, bro. So I know I'm busy, but we're doing things that matter, and I'm choosing joy. And before, I could have chose it. And that's the thing that we forget. It's like we go back and look at these things in our life that maybe didn't go the way we wanted or couldn't have gone the way we wanted, could have chose joy, could have done something different.
Yeah, let me drill way down into an idea. Okay? And so this is going to be a hard thing in the context of your work you're going to want to blame it on the context. So we say, study from the Arbinger Institute. We act contrary to what we feel we should do. When we do, we begin to see the world in a way that justifies our actions. And so you go, it is far easier to, I'm sorry for the double negative, to not act contrary to what you feel you should do in work that inherently, intrinsically matters to you. When I'm involved in a cause that I deeply care about, it is far easier for me to not act contrary to what I feel I should do, or to say it simpler, to just do what I feel like I should do. Whenever I don't care about the cause, it's far easier for me to do things that I know are less than my standard, are less than the quality that I know I was created for, and the ways in which to engage in conflict and stuff like that. But even when I'm in an environment or a cause that I don't care about and I act contrary to how I feel I should do, or what I should act, or what I should say, those things become attached to my character. Those behavior characteristics become attached to who I am. And so here's the hard thing. If you're in a cause that you don't care about, your negative actions are still negatively impacting who you are at the core. And so you have to fight against that. Yeah. And you have to go, even if I don't care about where this whole thing is headed, I care about who I'm becoming.
Yeah.
I care about my deeper character that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And so it may be more obvious. It may be far easier when you go, I care about this. But even if you don't care about the overall direction, you can never act contrary to what you feel you should do, because that will stay with you for a lifetime.
That's great. More becoming. That's fantastic. I love that thought. That is going to wrap it up for episode 57, The Joy Thief. Everybody has one. It's you, and it's me. Thank you for joining us today. We're so glad you joined us for another podcast. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it means the world to us. If you did that now, just hit that subscribe button if we're on YouTube too. Also, to post about it, rate and review, or both. All that rating and reviewing is all it's saying, hey, there's people listening to this, and so let's move this up on the radar for other people to catch it. Yeah. That's all that's doing. That's why we say it every week. So do that for us, and we can get this into the more hands of leaders just like you. And if we're all leading well, then we're probably doing better than what we're doing now, which is fantastic. We love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you have a story, visit leadinghope.online and send that to us. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.